spook easily, Storm?
Have you ever explored the depths of fear? Have you ever wondered what depravity dwells within the imagination of a storyteller that prompts them to exhume horrors untold and expose those horrors to unsuspecting audiences? Some are repulsed, and some are shaken. However, there are those who are invigorated. So to those demented souls, we invite you to journey inward into the dark bowels of human imagination. Press play, and you will discover what's in the podcast.
The basketball team is planning a party. A slumber party. The party begins at 8 o'clock. When the pizza arrives, things really start jumping. One thing's for sure, no one's getting any sleep the night of the Slumber Party Massacre. Close your eyes for a second and sleep forever.
And welcome back to a new edition of What's in the Podcast. And for this, we are going to go through a whole franchise breakdown. On each episode, we're going to talk about one particular installment of each movie. And because I did this on Deep Cuts on YouTube and had a blast talking about the Scream franchise, I had to bring back a dear friend to talk about another franchise that she holds near and dear to her heart, and one to which I have very gradually come to love with as much reverence, and definitely makes me look at power tools a completely different way. So yes, we are talking about the Slumber Party Massacre franchise, and I am bringing with me my wonderful friend all the way from the other side of the country, JT Tally Smith. Welcome.
Hello.
All right. So since this is your first time on What's in the Podcast, I always ask first timers this vital question: what is your origin story?
Ooh, okay. I was 4 years old, and it was Halloween night. I'm standing in the living room. Now, I remember, memory's a little fuzzy. I was 4, but I remember standing in the living room. I'm all decked out, probably a witch. I think I was a witch that year, with my empty trick-or-treat bag. Like, I am ready to go. But my parents are still futzing over my then at the time baby sister, trying to get her ready in her costume. And on the TV, an American Werewolf in London was playing. And it just happened to be the amazing Rick Baker transformation scene.
Oh.
My little 4-year-old heart is just, I'm watching this with big eyes, and it terrified me, but I couldn't look away. And I don't know, ever since then, I have been fascinated with monsters and horror and all things creepy.
Yeah. I wish I had your, such a young age exposure, because for me, if I had seen that, my unfortunately, sheltered, Republican born childhood would have been traumatized at that age, because I was at that point where I slipped and watched Terror Vision, and that terrified me.
Oh, nice. Oh, I was definitely traumatized when I was a kid. My dad, which is funny, I grew up in that same very Republican household, but my dad used to watch horror movies with me a lot when I was a little kid. It was he and his best friend, and The Thing. I had to have been about the same age.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I don't know what he's saying, but yeah.
Those things that are perceived as parental failures end up becoming successes in the long run down the road.
Yes.
I kind of wish my parents failed more often.
It wasn't the monsters that scared me so much. Like, the stomach claw thing, like that didn't, at least I don't remember it bothering me, but it was the dog transformation.
Mm-hmm.
That's still, whenever I watch that movie, I get like deep in my core, the fight or flight response, like something is wrong and I don't like this. And yeah, that is what traumatized me.
Oh yeah. And the amazing thing about The Thing is that you can only fight, because flight, not as much of an option where they're at.
No.
But we are not talking about that one today. We are talking about the Slumber Party Massacre franchise. Yes. So what is it that had you gravitating to this one that made you want to just go talk at length about this franchise? Tell me.
Well, the first one completely took me by surprise. It was during lockdown. I did a little side project where I edited together like 5-minute videos of me reviewing these old slasher movies that I had never seen before. So the idea is like, I'm not a trained film critic. These aren't things I've seen, so I'll watch it this once, because I watch these movies all the time. My friends are always asking, like, what is that? Was it good? And I found the title and the poster for Slumber Party Massacre. And it just looked so kitschy and silly. These girls in their lingerie, all, looking at this big, very phallic power drill. And I thought, oh, this is going to be hilarious. I'm going to watch it. What I didn't expect was it to really hit home as a woman, and kind of made me rally behind the end of the movie as a woman. It's this whole series is a very oddly feminist franchise. There's lots of holes, lots of problems, but I was not expecting that level of feminine power.
I wasn't, when I found out like the backstory, how each and every one of them, yes, written, directed by women, but, and of course, doing it under the eyes of all people, Roger Corman. Yes. And I think my favorite aspect of Roger Corman's contribution is how each of the creatives who had to make these movies had to kind of navigate the waters, the kind of minefield that Roger was giving them. Because, I mean, for the cynics looking in, there are, like, of course, the nudity and of course the violence, but the way all the filmmakers of this franchise have been able to take that and kind of turn it on its head is the thing that kind of just makes this franchise intoxicating. So the first entry was directed by Amy Holden Jones and was written by noted feminist author Rita Mae Brown.
Which I think that is in and of itself really interesting. Rita Mae Brown is known for writing Ruby Fruit Jungle, which is a great text that a lot of lesbians point out. It was sort of one of the very first books to promote lesbianism and to rally behind that, because no one, even feminist rights, they weren't really acknowledging lesbians. And Rita Mae Brown was the person who was really working to put their rights in the spotlight. And she ends up writing, which she I believe was going for a comedy, a straight up parody. And she wrote this movie. It if I remember correctly, it was originally called Don't Open the Door, which terrible title. Slumber Party Massacre, way more interesting.
I'm with that. Slumber Party Massacre has a kind of a more outrageous, balls to the wall attitude about it, which complements it. Not just this one, but let's be honest, it does kind of complement some of the later entries to come. So I feel like it's a grabber. And when you look at the poster of the movie, there's so many ways that you think that this franchise is just going to be pretty much, in a way, kind of like you'd think it was directed by Juan Piquer Simone, for the way you had there's you're thinking it's going to be something like Pieces, but then you go in and you're like, wait a minute, these are actual characters. You actually feel like they're friends. They actually have a back and forth. There's actually well-defined character dynamics in this first movie. And even the killer, where, I mean, I watched Final Exam, and that killer was boring as hell. And this killer could have been just as dull until you get to that last moment where he's looming over them.
You're pretty. All of you are very pretty.
Please don't do this.
I love you.
I love you. And it just, to me, it was one of those that this is supposed to be a schlocky slasher movie where you suspend reality. And in that moment, and I hate to just like keep going on about feminism, but that's going to come up a lot in this interview, I believe. And
it's going to go through the entire franchise, in my opinion, as it should.
hit me so hard as a real world fear. You know, and not necessarily afraid of a guy coming after me with a power drill, but so many what do they call it? The wolves in sheep's clothing guys that
Mm-hmm.
do this under the guise of love. Um, you know, because we care, and but it's really a way of manipulating you and controlling you. And these, you know, these guys are out there. Obviously
Yeah.
not all of them, but they're absolutely out there that are scary with
Yeah.
this level of admiration. And that scene, Michael Vieja as Russ Thorne,
Yeah.
like, nailed.
And actually, by extension of that, I love that you brought that particular aspect up, because one thing I noticed when I rewatched it in preparation for this, the thing that's wonderful is that the warnings of Russ Thorne are littered all throughout, and our characters are actually listening to the radio. They're, you know, they're looking at sports scores on the newspaper where it's there, and they're just brushing it off.
Mhm.
And I'm like, that is so real world right there. There are warnings all around us. I mean, we get Amber Alerts like
Oh
ad
yeah.
nauseum on our phone all the time, and we just brush them off because, you know, we're so focused on our everyday lives. And I loved how you had these characters who are so caught up in their own little world with their basketball, with their sports, with, you know, just their social hierarchy that they have going on, and they don't notice it, and it comes up to drill them in the ass.
Yes.
Upon research, Amy Holden Jones, she has a hell of a resume under her belt. In fact, the reason she took this gig was because she wanted to direct, because prior to this, she was an editor.
Mhm.
And to my knowledge, I believe she actually gave up the gig to direct, to edit E.T.
Yeah.
to do this movie. Now, now I guess it's up to her to determine if that was a good exchange. I mean, she did direct a movie that we're still talking about to this very day. So, but I believe they did come to her to direct the second one, and she said, "Why would I do that? The first one didn't get me any work."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is also the kind of the dark side of this whole story here, is that you do actually, I think that's kind of common with most of the directors of this whole franchise, is that they get the gig, they get to direct something, but what comes of it afterwards? That's the sad, you know, that's the tragedy here. As to, with this conversation just got very, very dire.
Yeah. Well, you
Yeah.
know, back then it really felt like the cult movie wasn't really a thing yet. It's like if your movie didn't do well in theaters, then it was a total stinker and no one's going to care about it ever. And that's what horror movies were. They were the redheaded stepchild that no one really wanted to do, but they were cheap and easy so as to get your foot in the door. No one, I think, really expected horror to stick around, at least in the 80s horror to stick around the way that it has and have the resurgence by finding it on VHS in your video stores and nowadays on VOD. And yeah, so when her first one flopped, I think she just was like, wrote it off. No one's ever going to talk about this movie again. It didn't help my career at all. Where nowadays, horror definitely is a powerhouse. Horror means something. And I think even movies that flop, you'll still see them being advertised and pushed by the studios years later, hoping for that like cult
Yeah.
following.
Well, it's interesting that now when we say flop, of course we mean critically, because one thing that has always been a virtue of Roger is that guy was a marketing genius. This movie actually banked really well, so much so that I think I want to say it's either this one or the second one. He was able to sell the distribution rights to the backers and was able to pretty much recoup the entire investment to make the next one. So I know that the movie was, in its own modest way, as Roger Corman is good to do, it was a financial hit, which obviously prompted Roger to immediately get to work on Slumber Party Massacre 2. She co-wrote Beethoven, Mystic Pizza, Indecent Proposal. So she had writing credit.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. As an editor, Corvette Summer and Hollywood Boulevard. Actually, she did do a lot of some gig. Well, she did the Ali Sheedy movie Made to Order and Rich Man's Wife. Oh, Taxi Driver. What'd she do in Taxi Driver?
Taxi Driver, I
Eh,
believe, is what got her
mhm.
over to LA. She was like an
Yeah.
assistant or something. And then that was how she started working for Roger Corman.
Yeah, and well, she definitely has a heck of a screenplay um listing. Well, she worked on pretty much most of the Beethoven movies.
Hmm.
The Relic.
Ah,
Yeah,
interesting.
she worked on that. Okay, actually, it all started from Slumber Party Massacre. She ended up kind of, progressing more as a writer. So, um, I guess the next thing we should probably get into is like some of the nuances of the film itself. What now? Rita Mae Brown intended this to be something of a satire, but of course, Roger Corman wanted to kind of push the excesses in there as well. I mean, the thing I have to say I laugh about, and I know that that Amy Holden Jones is like saying, "Here," is the overextended shower scene at the top of the
Oh,
movie.
yeah. It has nothing to do with anything. Like,
I mean, they do their best to try to justify it by having the characters actually having an exchange, like talking about planning for the party and talking about basketball and the like. But then you have just one shot where the camera does this needless track down to a soapy ass, and and there is no purpose for it. But if every one of those shots, I'm hearing Amy Holden Jones like going, "There,
did it.
choke on it. Let me get to making a movie."
Yes. Yes. It definitely felt like that.
But then after that, we do get an amazing chase sequence. Actually, one that's very well done, where Russ Thorne traps a student in the locker room area. One that's very subtly done, which I will say flat out, if you've ever been in your school at when you were a kid, you get like if you're at your school come closing time, it is eerie.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever had that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
I love that chase scene. I think this one I was very surprised at that moment because we see Russ Thorne in the middle of broad daylight and he doesn't have a mask or anything on. He's
mhm.
just like this normal dude. Which at first I thought was really cheesy. But then as it goes on,
Mhm.
it's like, oh yeah, that's what's actually scary. Um,
Yeah. And the
yeah.
movie yeah. And when he strikes, he doesn't just jump right in and strike. He very gradually like whittles them down
Oh yeah.
until until he finds the right in with that pizza boy drilling out both his eyes and doing. And I don't know how you feel about this particular thing, but the trope of the corpse propped up at the door and they open it and the corpse moves in. This is actually, I think, one of the few times for me it actually works because I can actually imagine the killer effectively propping up the killer and making it work. I don't know how you feel about that particular trope.
Yeah, I actually don't think of that trope so much. I usually think of the one like in Halloween. How did he get it so that the bodies can swing down and stuff? He walks by. Like that's some Home Alone level shenanigans.
Yeah, to
Um,
act to plan it just right so whoever walks in can like trip the wire and wah.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly. This
or
I guess I didn't really think anything of it because it felt like yeah, you drilled out his eyes and the guy would end up leaning against the door.
mhm.
So then you'd open the door and he fell through. It
Yeah,
like it's not
or
necessarily it would really work that way, but it
yeah,
didn't completely take me out of it.
or like another one that kind of cracks me up. Well, we just talked about Sleepaway Camp recently and how with Meg, Angela was able to prop up her body perfectly up against the shower curtain
Yeah.
to fall on cue. That's like,
Yes.
how? How? It's just like you're always left to one, or even Sleepwalkers at the beginning of the movie with Mark Hamill. The wizened corpse of a 13-year-old is propped up against the door
Oh.
to fall over.
This
It's like,
is a whole skill set that these serial killers, slasher killers have to like go to school for or something.
mhm. That and the well-timed cat scare. But actually, and since we're laughing about this, actually, it's a good thing to talk about. I love the fact that Rita Mae Brown intended this to be a parody,
Yes.
but as I've always said, a good parody has to have some level of affection for the thing they're parodying. I actually like that they don't really go so in your face with the with the mocking of the slasher tropes. I like the level that you could still take this as a serious slasher, but yet still laugh about it. I mean, that's how you can have scenes where someone opens a refrigerator door and the corpse slides in and does the squeaky noise, and it'll still work for you. So
yeah, I think they do a really good job of, the circumstances are funny, but this killer is very real, very rooted in reality, and he is scary. And yeah, right off the bat, like you mentioned, that chase scene in the locker room, that's scary. That is, I don't know, I feel like we've all, I'm trying to gather my thoughts.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. That's why, yeah. Or
yeah,
even before.
Yeah, the kills are very extravagant. But this killer, he's definitely something to fear. And I think having him play it straight, rather than tongue-in-cheek, winking at the camera kind of thing, is what gives you that serious slasher edge, if you can call a slasher serious.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was the fine line between parody and horror.
Yeah. And yet, because the characters are as well defined as they are, particularly as far as like their attitudes and their personality, after you see the pizza boy fall down, that's how you have a character being willing to still eat the pizza and actually say, I feel good. I feel good. I really do. And the dead body's right down there.
She said something amazing, and I can't remember what it is. She was
she's like, I feel better. I feel better when I eat. I feel better. I really do.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Meanwhile, on the other side, you have, I believe our heroine is Valerie and her sister Courtney,
yes.
All of, commiserating with each other that here they are alone, not being able to join in on the fun, sitting around eating weird Halloween lollipops and reading Playgirl. Just Sylvester Stallone's no less. I'm like, is that the Italian Stallion edition? Kind of
man. I really did like how they captured the high school girl politics. It felt very real, having Valerie, the way she wants to be part of this but isn't cool enough to be in the group, but it's not necessarily as scathing as the bullies in, say, Carrie are. Like, to me, the way it unfolds in Slumber Party Massacre is so much real. I have absolutely felt on both sides of that fence, ostracized by a group without being like completely bullied or beat up, but you're just not part of the cool group. And then you've been part of those groups where just someone in the group doesn't get along with someone else, and so they can't join. And it was kind of nice seeing girls on screen in a movie like this having actual women emotions and follow through with those emotions, rather than playing a total caricature of what teenage girls are like.
And I liked given those social dynamics, I like how it's not so gray. I mean, you have Trish, who actually is trying to extend a hand out to Valerie to invite her in, but then you've got people like Diane, who has this one great line where she's like, "You were a snob." He's like, "Oh, the best people are," and I'm like, you do real, God help this person if they said that on social media, they would be.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, I would never want. Sometimes you're like, in a slasher, you're like, thank God the killer killed this person before they got a smartphone in their hand.
Yes.
Because Diane would have been she would have been toxic as hell on social media.
Oh, horrible.
So yeah, just
while we're talking about the relationships between these teenage girls, I think one of the things that really surprised me, like I said, how strangely feminist this movie was, is I love the ending, and that the only way these girls can survive is if they band together. So it's not just the poor Valerie wasn't part of the group, so the group will die and she'll triumph. Like, no, they had to fight together in order to kill the driller killer. And it's so I mean, the cutting off of the drill is just the most overtly
Oh yeah.
yes, feminine power thing. And
you
yeah.
you definitely think Rita Mae Brown may have had that planned like from the get-go.
Oh,
I'm wondering if like the bare bones of the story as she was developing it was the image of a male killer with a big ass drill. I'd love to think that that's like the seed that kind of grew the story from there, and it's an effective image. And of course, credit to Amy Holden Jones
mhm.
for the way she does some of the shots. Of course, one that's even in the trailer for the title card is the shot of the killer looming over Diane with the silhouette of the drill strategically placed right between his legs.
Mhm.
That is great in your face imagery that fits perfectly with a movie called Slumber Party Massacre.
Yes.
Yeah, because it does drive me
Yes.
crazy. It does drive me crazy nowadays when you got all these people whining about woke horror, and I'm like, guys, sometimes you got to hit them over the head with the message, otherwise they're never going to get it. And in a movie called Slumber Party Massacre, I would be shocked if they went more subtle than that.
Oh. Yeah, it is funny that people are bringing up. I don't understand why horror films suddenly have to have a message, where they've had a message since the very beginning. That is how horror got invented, was a way to be able to talk about these political platforms and these crazy ideas and stuff. And yeah, this movie absolutely has an agenda. I mean, written by a prolific lesbian, the fear of this guy's power drill coming at them. I mean, can't really get more on the nose than that.
Though it also fascinated me was Amy Holden Jones actually had a bit of a backlash making this movie. Funny enough. Yeah. Well, a lot of on the other side, you had a bunch of feminists actually coming at them saying, how could you make a movie that is so exploitative and all that? And she actually retorted, she's like, so it's okay when Roger Corman works with Coppola and Scorsese and all these other people, and they make movies that do worse things to women. But I mean, in a way, it kind of goes back to the beautiful rant in the recent mega hit Barbie, kind of talking about those particular double standards. And I was like, it was eye-opening. It was just eye-opening when I found out that level of backlash happened with this movie. But it's like, she was doing it in a tongue-in-cheek, in-your-face, yeah, this is horrible way, and you didn't. And the people who you'd think would have gotten it didn't get it.
Yeah, it's like if it doesn't fit the exact stereotype in the package that you want, then it must be bad. Rather than no, it is what you want, just from a different point of view. And so many people just aren't willing, I think, to look at things from another point of view. And yeah, it's sad, but I am glad that it seems to be having a bit of a resurgence lately, and more women are discovering this franchise, which makes me happy. So
I think so too. I there's a part of me actually wondering if it's the fact that horror really has been on this sublime rise, and I think we have a bunch of slashers that have come out, which have been done a fine job of showing how slashers can be more social, or even just any kind of horror film, especially slashers, can have the social commentary edge. I think it has people jumping on those and then looking back and probably even finding out these key production details and realizing, with that in mind, then they look at the movie and they're going, oh.
Yeah.
So I suppose this is a good time to live in. So I suppose living in the age of IMDb and Wikipedia facts actually helps in this facts, because sometimes it does make it better when you know about the behind the scenes of a making of a movie. As previously stated, this was, as is expected for Roger Corman, definitely did very well for him. I know that it did gangbusters on VHS, which at that time, I know Roger Corman was on top of that market. And how could it not? Again, with that eye-catching VHS cover.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Such a good.
Oh, okay. Before we said, what was your happiest memory walking through the video? I know you we've all done it, walking through the horror section at your video store. What was your like? Did you?
I don't know if I can like pinpoint a happiest memory, but it's just some of those VHS covers definitely stuck out. And I think the biggest one when I was a kid was Dead Alive. And I didn't watch the movie as a kid, but
Yeah.
there was something, yeah, just this like
Yeah.
zombie inside the mouth. Oh my gosh, that one terrified me as a
Mhm.
kid.
Yeah, I think for me, I was actually well, again, given my upbringing, walking through the horror section at a Blockbuster was pretty much akin to like sneakily poking your head into the porn section of a family-owned video
Yes.
store.
Yes.
So here I was, like, looking at all the covers of the Friday the 13th movies, because, you know, credit to its due, the poster art for the Friday the 13th movies were great. But then you look at the stuff like I find it funny when you think about some of those movies you pick up and you think, just from how amazing the covers look, that this movie is going to be like this roller coaster of terror.
Yeah.
And then it turns out, like, one cover that stuck out to me was the movie Curtains. The poster art is amazing. It's actually almost kind of gothic. You'd think it's going to be something operatic. It's this, this old woman mask and just this, I guess, baby doll kind of like parting these curtains. But it's a very striking cover. And then you watch the movie, and I was, instead of being like intimidated by it, I was spending more time going, lighting is your friend.
Oh no. Couldn't see anything.
I couldn't see a thing.
There was too many curtains. You got to open some of the curtains.
Exactly. Open that. So yeah. The beautiful thing about people like Roger Corman is that they understood the market. Roger Corman, Charles Band, especially, these guys understood the market so well, and they understood the value of the video store and the importance of a good VHS cover, because that's what ended up selling the movies for the most part when they couldn't get a widespread distribution.
Yeah.
And
that absolutely makes sense. Absolutely makes sense.
And it's no shock that Slumber Party Massacre was a video store darling at the time, well enough to justify Roger immediately selling people on funding Slumber Party Massacre 2, which at this point we can definitely jump into. So I think for each of these movies, I think for fun, let's go ahead. What would you say was your top kill in Slumber Party Massacre 1?
I love the pizza guy with the eyes. But I think it's I love how that chick is still gonna eat this pizza on the dead corpse. Eat it while it's hot. It's gonna get cold. I know that doesn't really count as a kill, but that's a kill. Always sticks out for me. Yeah.
All right. This one, actually, it's a good one that you mentioned. I think for me, because normally off-screen kills are a letdown. When you don't see what happens. But orchestrated just right, a off-screen kill can be just as effective. And this one does it right, because technically that pizza guy is an off-screen kill, because you never actually saw it. You just saw the aftermath. So this one has a lot of those good ones. I would flat out say the beginning one in the locker room is a great one, because you see the lead up. You see her blood gives away her position to the killer, and you see him drilling into the door. But then it does a wide cut, and you just hear her scream.
Yes.
And then you see Russ Thorne just running out the door with the drill. And it's like, what did he do to her? And something obviously so horrible that he had to, like, I'm out. I'm running. Yeah. The other one, though, I have to say that almost took this trophy was the phone repair woman prior to that in the van.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
This is an interesting one.
Well, I think my favorite thing about that is that she was having this little flirtation session with with two of our token male leads, and actually a really cool thing is, like, right when they're walking away, she gets pulled into the van by Russ Thorne, and she's beating against that window to those boys, and they don't hear her.
Yeah.
I was like, that's a good. It's that wonderful window of opportunity of survival just shuts, like, immediately. So that almost took it, but because I love the build up and because it was effective, I went with the locker room. So
okay, yeah, the editing in the locker room one was great.
Yeah, but now I kind of want pizza now.
I
You
mean,
know,
it's on my
Yeah.
show. Yeah.
Brought to you by Fright Rags.
Yes.
Yeah. How? Okay. I feel bad. I think I was like going. We should have just ordered pizza before we started. Never mind. Anyway,
It's only
so
11:30 for me.
that's okay. So a little early. All right. Well, in that case, I think we've sung as much praise as we can to this, trailblazing first entry in the franchise, and I admit I'm kind of giddy because, admittedly, my favorite one is coming up. So I say let's just go ahead and jump into it. So for all of you at home, stay tuned to what's in the podcast. So where me and Tally will go ahead and jump into the melodiously marvelous Slumber Party Massacre 2. And for all of you wanting to explore the depths of human imagination, ask yourself the simple question, what's in the pot?